Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Welcome to Mission Evolution, where we explore the deeper questions of consciousness, transformation, and what it truly means to be human. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka, and today we're delving into one of the most mysterious and revealing experiences we all share, dreaming. My guest today is Craig Webb, a dream researcher from Montreal who spent years studying the language of dreams and what they may reveal about our inner lives, our subconscious intelligence, and possibly even realities beyond our waking awareness. Dreams can be puzzling, symbolic, prophetic, and at times profoundly transformative. Are they simply reflections of our daily lives, or are they messages guiding us towards a greater understanding and evolution? Stay with us as we explore what dreams may be telling us and how listening to them might help us awaken more fully in our hidden lives. Craig, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Really glad to be with you again, Gwilda. How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I hope it's going to be a wonderful year up and coming.
Yeah, that sounds great. We'll dream up something good anyway.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll have to. No more nightmares, huh?
Or daymares. How about some of those?
Oh, we got those going still, I'm afraid. So Craig, what first drew you into the serious study of dreams, and how did that curiosity evolve into your current research work?
That's quite a question. That's like a 35-year path. So in a nutshell here, I guess I was a good little physicist, scientist, minding my own business, studying science. Pretty objective, though, really kind of in the thinking mind and the intellect, which I didn't realize at the time, but as life would have it, I guess I wanted to rebalance or at least expand my perception, identity, or psyche or something. And I had a near drowning under a whitewater raft.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And I would say at the time, I loved water. Any water sports, great for me. Kayaking, windsurfing, whitewater rafting. You sit on the back because just like a bus, it's even more fun. You get bigger bumps. So I didn't have fears, but I could say that all of a sudden, thrown off this raft and stuck underneath because the water was kind of silty and I couldn't see or anything. But I had my helmet and, I guess, vest on, but I sort of bumped into the raft, if I remember correctly. And then there was this fleeting thought of, oh boy, I guess this is it. You're not going to make it here, because I didn't have any air in time to gasp for air when I went under. And I guess that kind of thought solved pretty quickly into this strange, with a little bit of surprise because it was strange, but a rich, deep peace. And okay, this is it. This is my moment of moving on. And I was a little surprised at the peace, but I kind of went with it. And I guess kind of cuts to next scene. The guide probably pulled me out. I don't exactly remember. There was a lot going on in those 60 seconds or so. But the guide pulled me out, I imagine, and rafted the rest of the day pretty much as normal. I guess maybe coughed up a couple of fish or something. You know how it is. And then not just did I have this kind of deep peace continue, I actually had about 10 dreams a day start to come pretty clearly into my memory from nowhere, because I wasn't really against, or I wasn't a skeptic or anything, but I wasn't really interested in anything like that before. And now all of a sudden these precognitive dreams, like very clear, specific things that were coming true later. And then lucid dreams, we can talk about that. And strange things that weren't really in my physics training. So that got me going, I guess, first person subjective scientist for a while. And then I turned it into, research at Stanford, the lucid dreaming research that brought lucid dreaming to the West. I was lucky to be there. And then created the Dreams Foundation, a nonprofit based out of Montreal, to bring some of the benefits, maybe some of the research, the insights out to the public. So thanks. You're helping the mission here.
How did, we talk about researching dreams. How does one research them? What all do you do, Craig?
Well, there's levels of research. I think probably like yourself or many of the listeners, there's certainly the first person, what I call subjective science. kind of made a new phrase because it's valid, it's valuable also, that we explore as dreamers our first person experiences of altered states, shamanic journeys, overnight lucid dreams, all kinds of things that are a little tougher to track with the instruments. So it doesn't have to always be like pure science instrument research. And then again, there's the whole balance in the other side. That's good. I think statistics are a really good segue to start to see what a lot of people dream, like content. You ever had one of these recurring chase dreams, Gwilda? Where you're being chased?
Not necessarily chase dreams, but I have had a lot of reoccurring dreams that end up being fairly precognitive.
Okay. In other words, a warning.
Sometimes they're warnings, sometimes it's just kind of like random things, and then when they happen, I recognize them.
Okay. So not too necessarily upsetting, but just clear enough to catch your attention, right?
Yes, exactly. Hmm.
So there is that subjective side, and we notice these things. And then there's statistics when we do research surveys in the sleep lab. We can kind of take reports. And I've had the good fortune to work both sides and more too, because I also develop technologies that help people to understand, remember, interact with their dreams, maybe even become lucid. One of the things I was lucky enough to be at the right time and place, I designed the Nova Dreamer sleep mask at the Stanford Research, which helps trigger people with lucid dreams. Imagine a little, almost like a little genie, but it was a little electronic device that you wear while you sleep. It watches your rapid eye movements to see when you're in the dream cycle and gives a little feedback like a cue, maybe a light or a little sound, or you could hook it up to other outputs, but not enough to wake you, just enough to stimulate your consciousness a little bit. Hey, you're dreaming right now.
Okay.
And that worked well. So there's different aspects of the research, from kind of first person subjective science and exploring, and then working with students and clients, and then giving talks. And then also the sleep lab side, which is a little more, I guess, empirical, but it shows some interesting things that we can check with our first person experience too.
Fascinating. So, from your perspective, what are dreams? Are they random brain activity, symbolic messages, or something far more purposeful?
Well, a lot of the above and more for sure. It's like this little, have you heard this story about the elephant when it's outside the wall of the sea? It's a good analogy, so I bring it up. There's an elephant waiting outside, but the people of the city don't know what it is. They're just told a big monster and they're blind. So they kind of reach out to the outside the wall to see what's going on, and one person grabs onto the ear and says, "Oh, this monster is just like a big rug." And the other one reaches and grabs the trunk, and he says, "Oh no, it's like a big garden hose. What are you talking about?" The other one gets the tail, and he goes, "No, no, it's just like a little sort of stringy, fluffy thing." Another one gets the leg and says, "No, it's like a temple pillar. What are you talking about?" And here, everybody kind of has their take on what this thing is. And I think in life, it's often the same for dreams, because really everybody should say what's their experience. Sometimes they dream their goals for their life, your wishes, your New Year's resolutions in this case. And you'll see that those dreams that we sometimes have for wishes for our life end up being sparked, or at least seeded by, sometimes very directly, from our nighttime dreams. So I think there's quite a spectrum there, kind of from inner to outer when we talk about dreams. Hopefully that wasn't too vague. Probably opens more questions than I answered, right?
No, I think it was pretty comprehensive, actually. So, how do you refine the difference between ordinary dreams and what many people call significant or meaningful dreams?
Yeah, that's a good one. Each person should probably define their own, what level and what names they want to give it. But usually they're referring to some level of emotional impact. Have you had any kind of big, what from Freud would call big dreams, or significant ones lately or ever, Gwilda?
Oh, usually I spend an awful lot of time dreaming. Okay, so yeah, and particularly right now with all the upheaval going
Yeah.
around, I think that kind of bleeds through.
And also like shamanic states, not necessarily fully asleep in a bed, but just other sort of levels.
Well, I'm a shamanic practitioner, so yeah.
That's what I thought so. So we should ask you to define dreams just for fun. How would you define dreams?
Access to the quantum level.
Okay, that's good. My physicist likes that interpretation when I met a physicist.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely we have access to like lots of microscopic worlds. We can tune into things like even medical problems that we might have, before they get recognized physically. We can tune into other people at a distance, so some strange quantum physics there. And we can tune into events in the future. Sort of the timeline doesn't work the normal way from that perspective, from the dream level. And then we can also tune into like upsetting dream because we had a big pizza at midnight. So it's not always necessarily deep world shaking. Just means don't have the pizza at midnight.
Yeah, sometimes it's just don't have a pizza at midnight. How do you define the difference between ordinary dreams and what many people call significant or meaningful ones?
Yeah, well, I would say that difference, emotional impact that I mentioned, is pretty good. Sometimes there's an interesting vividness. So people describe it in a different way, like, oh my God, it wasn't even a dream, it was real. Well, that's just language, a different way of saying it. Different cultures will say different things. In the West, we usually say, I had a dream. That's interesting that I'm just sort of using the verbs. In India, they'll say, I saw a dream.
Hmm.
I try to say, I experienced a dream. In French, we say, I made a dream. So there's interesting language, even how we define what it is and what's going on and how we tell it and who I was when I was doing that thing. I was walking with dad or whatever the dream was, but how is that possible if the person telling it wasn't there with her father? So there's some identity expansion or at least levels in there that's not obvious. So we could say dreaming is usually at a level that's separate from the person recounting or from some other part of our identity that experiences the dream and then usually tells about it, acts on it, maybe even makes artwork later. Have you ever created or made a decision from a dream, Gwilda?
Quite frequently, yes.
Like life choices that affect our reality here on the world?
Yes, and I do a lot of scripting and composing and that sort of thing, and
Oh,
most of that
okay.
comes from the dreamscape.
I love it. Well, that's right in line with my book, The Dreams Behind the Music. I
Oh, I
got
love that one.
featured
Yes,
artists.
yes.
And you're in good company with lots of big names who dream up music and dream up different career decisions and things.
So, do you believe dreams can serve as a bridge between the conscious and subconscious, or even between the physical and non-physical realms?
Yeah, absolutely. Both and beyond also. Subconscious is a word that the consciousness are sort of who I'm talking to you from, this part of me that I'm speaking with. That might define a subconscious, but the subconscious itself might not even define itself. It's just, hey, here I am in my dream if I'm lucid. Oh, maybe my waking mind joins me. But that might be a part of us that just realizes itself there, and it won't call itself subconscious. I usually say just different levels of our identity. If you want to use science phrases, subconscious is a good one, I guess. And levels of physics, for sure, we can tune into these things that are free from some of the physical laws on Earth, sort of in waking physical reality. Like we said before, premonition dreams or telepathic or clairvoyant. Have you ever had any of the latter?
Yeah, probably. But it's going to be time for us to take a station break,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. But we'll pick up with this fascinating topic just on the other side. Craig and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation.
Are there messages behind allegories? With us this hour discussing the often hidden meanings of our dreams is Craig Webb. His website, craigwebb.ca. Craig, what role do archetypes, symbolism, or cultural influences play in how dreams communicate with us?
That's great. I like that we're getting to kind of empowering, almost like techniques in a way. It's I could answer it sort of from a knowledge level, but it gets pretty quickly into techniques. So how can we understand, interpret, and hopefully maybe act on a dream, right? Certainly metaphors, cultural-wide metaphors, sometimes like humanity-wide. maybe even like across species, fire, water, things that all the animals and other beings here on Earth experience. Those are super important metaphors. They'll play out in dreams. But like most symbols, there's sort of a really personal aspect, or let's say a very individual take on it, different experiences from our past. Maybe we had, a fire in our house as a child, and we don't have the same experience of fire in a dream as somebody who's enjoying a hearth or a warm fireplace or a candle or something. So you can see there's lots of levels to the personal, right to the archetypal of fire is transformation, change in physics. It's actually atoms changing chemical structures and things. So you can see that there's usually from the individual up to the archetypal or global, or maybe even beyond that levels.
Have you observed patterns in dreams that suggest collective themes shared by humanity rather than just individual experience? Now that you brought that up.
Yeah, well, certainly there's archetypal themes that go across cultures. Sometimes they're within a culture, like let's say driving a car out of control. Have you ever had that? Car accident or can't turn or out of control, no brakes. You ever had that?
Yes. Those aren't much fun.
No, either in waking life when there's too much snow or, of course, in dreams. The feeling there is kind of the important thing, just if people want a little bit of a cue or a little bit of a segue. I call it the Rosetta Stone to help understand what a dream might relate to in life. The feeling links the same feeling that we'll probably experience or that we did experience in our waking life. So that usually links the dream and waking if people want a little tip there. But the archetypes can be helpful. Sometimes a cultural one like the car out of control will be just like westernized nations. Like if I go to an indigenous nation or more tribal or maybe even tropical or something, they won't really have car out of control. They might have something else, hurricane or the flood waters coming through the gates or whatever. We don't know what each culture has. There's quite a bit of worldwide research, but there's lots of variations too. What I find pretty interesting, if people can keep, and in this lab we kind of researched the statistics when they keep a personal lexicon, and that becomes pretty valuable. So if like I'm often dreaming of themes of dogs, that's one of my personal, I guess, common recurring items. Flying, the universal one that I often dream. A little bit of a rare one is music. Not everybody, usually about less than 5% of people have dreamt music. And I often dream music a few times a week. So we can kind of see where we match up or where we differ from, I guess, the collective. And that's interesting too. And you can see what our strengths, our interests are. I think you dream music too, right? What, Gwilda?
I do. Yeah, the bumpers you're hearing are some of the
I
ones, some
thought
of the
so.
results.
That
Yeah.
is great. And is that you singing too?
Yes.
Wow, nice voice. Great, great.
Thank you.
I love that you're acting on it and bringing it real. Really, that's the message. Dream true. Come on, bring this stuff out for all of us.
I often wonder, what are we tapping into there?
Yeah, the music specifically, you mean?
For sure the
Or all
music,
of
but
it?
all of it, yeah.
Well, the music specifically, I think, ends up being kind of a special interest and maybe even sort of like an inner skill. I believe there's equivalents to our physical senses, but at deeper levels, maybe we can call them inner senses. And some of them match up well with the physical, like when we have a visual dream, that's our inner eyes, or when we hear music, our inner ear, inner listening. And then there's some other inner senses that probably don't match up very well with any physical counterpart. But in this case, I think if we have a little more natural either interest in music or artistic expression, or we're more of a feeling person, because music is very tied with the feeling sense. I write a lot about that in my book, The Dreams Behind the Music, but it really shows up that it's directly connected with feelings. And that's why songs are popular, because, people resonate with the feelings of what they went through, not just the lyrics, but sometimes the music really says it, or the way the person interprets the singing. So I think some of that's going on. And if they're a deep artist who really has an intention to reach lots of people, or have a calling of some sort, like Joni Mitchell, for example, one of our Ontarian neighbors there, I guess a while ago, an original from Ontario. She had to dream of beautiful music coming from this piano she was playing. And I think she was very young at the time, sort of like elementary school or at least beginning high school. And then she saw like all the people responding, oh my goodness, I helped these people feel all kinds of emotions. It was so beautiful. And so she asked her parents, hey, can we get a piano? I'd love to learn how to play. It seems like I could touch people. her parents at the time didn't have the funds, and so it was no, no, no. But she kept asking and having the dreams, and eventually, I guess a piano appeared at one Christmas, and we all know the story. I had 10 Grammys, and I think 18 nominations later, somebody who really followed their calling dream to bring their gifts to the world. So maybe somebody who dreams music has a little bit of a calling or an opportunity for a gift of creativity.
Amazing. So many people report prophetic or precognitive dreams. How do you approach these experiences as a researcher?
Yeah, well, it depends if I'm in my first person subjective scientist hat. In other words, I'm just exploring and speaking about it on my sort of personal viewpoint, or if I'm a little more statistically. We'll start with the statistics because it's good to trust these things, because people say, what? You can't dream the future. What are you talking about? Or you can't dream things that were in the distant past that are accurate. Who knows? At least the past is usually a little more verifiable, but then people might just slip to, if they're skeptical, they might just say, oh yeah, you could have looked it up or something. In the future, it's a little tougher to look it up unless you have the inner senses working. So I would say, first of all, the statistics show 2 out of 3 people, if asked or if queried or if we do a survey, will actually at some point say that they've dreamt something that later came true. So that's pretty interesting. 2 out of 3, that's a lot, more than we might guess. And then about 1 out of 10 can actually track when they had the dream, that they shared it before the event, and that it was pretty specific, not something general like, oh yeah, the wind was blowing. Of course, probably the wind was going to blow someday soon anyways. But if it was something specific, example, let's go catch some big fish. That's a dream that I had that I later found out was precognitive. But I was kind of like, oh, big fish, because my deceased father came and said, this must be important. My recently deceased father says, catch some big fish. But I don't have a rod. I am staying in Hawaii at the time, but I think I'm not going to go deep sea fishing just today. Well, I'll think about it. And then later that day, flying my drone, I had kind of nervousness to fly out over the ocean until I saw this huge whale spume of, I guess, when they breathe, you get the big spout.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow. Oh, and the dream I remembered right at that moment, catch big fish on video.
Well, that's
Oh,
one big fish.
that's a big one. Well, actually,
Yeah.
it turned out to be 2 big fish because I took my courage. I put aside the risk of, okay, if the wind changes, I just have a $1,000 submarine, and I went a kilometer or 2 out over the ocean. Talk about a 5-minute drone flight before it gets there, and it saw a beautiful like parent and a baby swimming majestically, and I got it all on video, and it actually turned into a film. So
Wow.
I could say pretty clearly for me, that was a precognitive dream from subjective experience. I wouldn't have probably done that. I wouldn't have necessarily turned it into a video. But I know from my experience that when a dream has a little more vividness, clarity, and when a deceased person comes, it's probably something you want to explore acting on in some way. And so that gives a little hint of what dreams might have that element. And sometimes there's cues of events that are coming in our life, or there's even dates, specifically, or sort of timing link ups. So there's lots of ways we can explore of how to track and maybe even act on those precognitive dreams a little more. But I encourage people who are skeptic, just keep it open enough to try it or see if it's possible. Because if you have a closed mind in the realm of the subjective, which dreams are subjective, probably you're going to limit your experience because you don't believe in it. So at least keep an open mind and then just see what the data says. That's what I say.
It sounds like dreams are outside of time and space.
They certainly can be. Imagine that physics usually deals with sort of measurables. So that's one of our cultural beliefs. We're pretty strong on science, but other communities, let's say indigenous tribes, they'll be fine with like anything, or tuning into my friend across the forest. Yeah, we spoke today. I better go visit him because he wanted me to come over and heal his child. And they won't think twice of it. Was it precognitive? Well, it was precognitive in the sense that he wouldn't know for sure physically that the child was sick until he got there. But later in the day, when he gets there and it proves true, he goes, oh, it was precognitive. Was it telepathic? Was it clairvoyant? It doesn't really matter in the end if it became practical, but it was some kind of inner sense that proved true. And in this case, maybe it wasn't super rare that the child might have been sick and that he arrived there and that was that. But if it happens like 10, 20, 30 times and your whole culture believes in it, then it's just a natural thing. Like, okay, of course you can do it, but what are you going to do about it? It will become the question soon after that.
Can dreams offer guidance or insight during times of personal or, like we talked earlier, global crisis?
Yeah. Well, of course, we, in a little moment of silence here. real special prayers for all the September 11th folks. But I did get tons of emails and reports, and even in workshops, people saying about, oh, I'm having these terrible dreams of planes crashing and sort of buildings and like terrible. And then the event of September 11th, 2001 happened. So these dreams came before. And I started to note the data there and track them, and also offer empathy, not just like analyze stuff. And then other events, like there was some big floods in Quebec not too long after that, and there was a whole slew of dreams about that before the event. And there's probably bigger reasons. We could almost say that some kind of community-wide, or maybe province, or even nation or international event is sort of a co-created public dream. I mean, that's one way of flipping it on and saying, are dreams community events that sort of we created at another level first because we need to learn something? What do you think about that? Is that too crazy?
No, there's nothing crazy under the sun anymore, is there?
I don't know. I'm going to see maybe the moon under the sun when you get that eclipse. Did you watch that a couple of years ago?
No, I didn't get to see that.
Oh, okay. That was pretty crazy, or at least rare. I liked it, though.
Yeah.
Well, I'll use it as a little bit of a metaphor analogy. So if we can unite the dreaming mind and the waking mind a little more, in other words, starting to recall dreams more. And if you want to get intrigued, because they're really fascinating and interesting, and usually pretty fun too, you can start exploring lucid dreaming. I teach a lot of students about how to become conscious during a dream. That's lucid dreaming, with our body asleep in bed. So we could actually in the sleep lab prove that you're scientifically fully asleep. Your muscles are completely relaxed. And yet you're tuning into this other reality in first person, kind of like I'm talking to you now, like real time, not just remembered afterwards. And when we unite the dreaming and waking minds, lots of this inner tuning, magic, or insights, connections with other people, tuning into events, sometimes even just simple creativity can come much more easily, naturally, and we can have a good time too.
Well, it's time for yet another station break. Craig and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation, to heal this earth of ours. Our gracious Mother The end has come, the night has fallen. I have reached the end of days. What's real is not reason.
Dreams. What if you can't remember them? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing the hidden aspects of our dreams is Craig Webb. His website, craigwebb.ca. Craig, what techniques do you recommend for improving dream recall and working more consciously with your dreams?
Yeah, well, I first suggest the strange thing. Now, it's not going to sound too scientific, but it ends up actually being very practical and effective, and probably could be measured scientifically. I suggest to people to befriend their dreams. So it's a little bit of a strange scientific answer, I guess. But actually that relationship of growing over time, sometimes there's a little give and take, or we lose connection for a week or two, or we get really interested in something else for a while. And then we come back to that friendship and we show up for it. In other words, if we do get an insight, if maybe we fell asleep with a question or a problem, then we actually show up and take an action based on whatever insight we got about a dream, or maybe even just a waking thought, our first waking thought. But I suggest to people, if you want to help to sort of bridge the worlds or tune in a little better to dreams, to recall better, just think of like a sort of a slider, the sliders on a music audio board. And we can use each slider as one of the physical senses. And then there's this other channel on there. We'll call it channel 1 because I think it's before the others. But in our slider analogy of a music studio, we want to turn down the ears. In other words, try not to wake up to an alarm if we can avoid it. We can certainly set a body clock or an intention. Hey, dear dreams, dear body, wake me up at, I don't know, 15 minutes before I really need to get up so I can be quiet, peaceful, and maybe write down my dreams. We certainly want to keep the visual low, so we kind of keep that slider of our eyes, ideally close our eyes. If we wake up and we forgot about it, then just close them again. Movement, so the physical touch, I guess we want to keep low in the balanced body position. So go back to the same position we woke up in and try not to move around too much right when you wake up. And that'll keep that slider down of physical touch and sensation. And those things alone will actually help that a little bit usually softer channel or quieter channel, the dreams themselves, to come in clearer. And that can help a lot of people keep the physical senses as low as you can when you wake up. And then maybe just think about fishing, like throw in a little line. Hey, was I with mom? What's my feeling in my body right now? Do I have a sensation? Am I thinking of any music playing through my head? And a few little questions can be like tossing a fishing line, and we might be surprised all of a sudden this whole flashback comes. What techniques, do you have any techniques that work for you, Gwilda?
For me, and I was going to ask you about this next, Craig, is can we set an intention to have a specific dream or a dream that could be an answer to something that we're puzzling over?
Yeah, sure. And by the way, that's a good segue, because one of our specific intentions, like before sleep, even during the day, but before sleep is a little bit closer to the time and to the experience. So it's usually good. We can just say, hey, I want to recall my dreams better. Just falling asleep, maybe the last few thoughts on our mind is the vision of the type of dream we'd like to have, a feeling that we're hoping for, flying dream that feels exhilarating, as an example. And then a little suggestion to self, hey, it's going to be easy, natural, and spontaneously to remember my dreams tomorrow, or whenever I need to, maybe during the day or next week or something, but they'll come easy and natural. So yeah, suggestions for sure work, like any subconscious suggestion. The power of the subconscious mind is pretty well known in a lot of research. And then if we have things that are more specific, I'm working on a programming problem at work, or maybe I'm an artist, I'm looking for a new routine or a new piece of art for my studio, or if, like you and me, maybe a new song or some arrangement on the current song. Or it could be something as simple as, hey, can I have some diet advice for the kids? It seems like they're getting sick often. Or whatever wish we have, we can put it to our subconscious, which is dreams. It's also intuition. So the answer might not come in a clear dream, which it often does. People might be surprised. I say, just try it before you sort of ignore it or be skeptical. Give it a shot. And it might not come the first day. It might take 2 or 3 tries. But then also watch your waking insights and intuitive thoughts, because it might just flash to you the next day, or a strange synchronicity might happen where the grocer all of a sudden suggests that you should really try this spice. What? Yeah, no, I'm really sensing this would be really good for you. Even though they don't know you, they're all of a sudden suggesting you try cloves or something like that. Okay, maybe that'll help with my mouth bacteria, who knows? But you'll see that specific synchronicities related to our suggestions sometimes percolate into the waking dream of life. So yeah, try it out.
Yeah, I love that waking dream of life. Isn't that the truth? Do you see dreaming as a form of inner intelligence or consciousness trying to communicate with us? So coming the other way, instead of us setting an intention for a subject of the dream, is there something inside of us that's trying to communicate with us?
Yeah, well, there's lots of things inside for sure. I like the little image of your program logo here, of the sort of looks like the connected net of maybe media networks, and maybe it's a good symbol for the internet. I coined the phrase and used the analogy of the inner net as the realm where we get our dreams from. It's kind of like the internet, but it's inside us and it's subjective mostly. But just like the actual physical internet, which I think is sort of the physical expression of the inner net of dreams, we can connect with others, people in our lives. Sometimes you can actually have meetings where you intentionally meet somebody who's physically distant, and you haven't spoken to them. And you find some, let's say, fairly provable or at least rare things that you can later recount together and say, oh my gosh, we actually met in dreams. So there's an internet of connections. There's obviously something like the internet. There's like news sites. If you want to learn about world events, you can sometimes tune in with dreams. If you want to get the answer to maybe an invention we're working on, you can tune into the one dreamer tuned into the Museum of Uninvented Inventions. I loved it. So let's say a future probability, if you choose to, you could make this device and maybe help a lot of people, maybe make a lot of money or whatever the invention is. And so just like the internet, I think there's many, many levels in there, and there's certainly ways that we can connect with others. It's not always just private.
So often I'll wake up and I'll feel like I've been working all night, and people will come to mind. So is
Right.
that a sign that indeed I have been communicating and working with the soul team, if you will?
It could be. The specifics of the dream and the dreamer's experience and belief system. There's a lot of subtle things there. You can say if you get an email, should you open it? Well, first thing I say, check the title. Who's it from? What time did it come? At 3:33 a.m. from Africa? Well, I don't know. And not to be judging countries, but a lot of the spam seems to come from sort of there. And then you start to see dreams can be a little bit, not quite like terrible spam or phishing scams, but they might not all be worth really exploring or listening to. You sort of, I think, tune in to, or at least hint at something that could be very valuable for listeners here. And I'm happy about it because people don't always think of their first waking thought as something unique or valuable. But I think that's sort of the summary, or let's say the action items from a night's dreams. And we call it, I use the word thought, sort of in like, let's say, quote marks, because we don't think of something that's not visual as a dream, but it could easily, like I just thought of my aunt. Let's say you had a dream where you woke up feeling or thinking of your aunt. Well, that's pretty close to probably a suggestion to call her or check in, or were you thinking about creating something that, like her, that she created this business or she had this amazing family, and sort of use it as an archetypal. So each streamer can do what they want with it, but it's probably a bit of a hint to start exploring, why did I just wake up thinking or feeling that?
We talk about, literal meaning or allegorical meaning, but can it be all the above?
Yeah, and more.
Fascinating.
Well, leave a big pause there so that people get their own answer. So meaning itself, we're starting to play with words, and I'm being a little playful, so hopefully your listeners will forgive my crazy Canuck viewpoint here. But even the word meaning usually sort of limits it just to sort of thinking, analyzing, mind, intellect. What if it's a feeling we wake up with, or a sensation in our body, like a really sore leg that we didn't have falling asleep, Or what if it's like music playing? Or what if it's this very strange synchronicity of something that like never happens, and it just sort of wakes us out of sleep. And then we go back to bed and we were pretty sure that we actually woke up. So there can be sort of synchronicities that are sort of halfway between waking and dreaming events too. Yeah.
So how did trauma and stress or major life transitions shape the dream landscape?
Yeah, certainly life can affect our dreamscape for sure, as it affects our feelings, it affects our subconscious, it affects our thinking. And the other way around is really obvious. When we have a nightmare, it affects our feelings waking up. And the two usually bridge and weave together in different ways. Obviously, stress is going to limit our sleep a little bit, depending on exactly how the person and I guess the situation is. But if our sleep is a little bit more normal, then the stress might come as an upsetting dream. Or if we have a stressful dream, it might encourage us and give us a little kick in the butt to act that day on something. Actually, you might be interested to know, well, that I have different radio hosts and also, I guess, producers. So if you're producers listening there, who have like dead air, or I didn't find the notes for the session, sort of it seems to be this interesting recurring dream for radio. And the feeling's important of, oh boy, am I prepared enough for this show? Maybe I'll make sure I do a few extra questions, or I get there a little early in case some distraction happens right near showtime or something. So there can be some guidance mixed in with the stress dreams too.
In your experience, how can people distinguish between symbolic dreams and more literal ones?
Yeah, well, that's the kind of $1 million question. What are the 649 numbers, and how do I get them, and should I buy 10 tickets with them? Well, every person should make their own best choice about how to do what they want to do with a dream. But I do generally encourage this thing. It's not exactly the literal interpretation, but it's usually good to sort of ask a question about a dream, or even falling asleep. Hey, what do my dreams, or what does this dream want? And it's a little different from what many people say of what does this dream mean, or what do my dreams mean? And want actually steers, different question, different data in, you get different data out. It might come with an idea of acting or calling somebody, or you might get a creative inspiration that day. Or maybe you'll just have a motivation like I did this morning to start eating bananas. I had a dream with lots of bananas, people having feet made from bananas. And I haven't had bananas in a long time, so I'm going to go out and take it. And by the way, when I say act on a dream, if it gets expensive or risky, or at the office, you're not going to necessarily tell your boss that same day. But if it's simple and there's no big costs associated, why not? Like, it's not going to hurt me to have a few bananas, and possibly it could help my different diet or maybe physical questions. I've been wondering about supplements and things. So if it doesn't hurt, I say try an action anyways, and then quite possibly it might be intuitive to really help in a significant way.
So do you think your body can kind of be talking to you through your dreams as well as to its needs?
Yeah. Well, you've seen the snake around the staff in the Canadian Medical Association, the AMA symbol. Have you seen that sort of symbol of the Medical Association? That actually comes from dream healing temples for like about 1600 years officially. Even still today, there's a few all across, well, mainly Greece, but all around, I guess, the Mediterranean, who would actually intentionally go on pilgrimages and have usually medical or deep emotional connection types of dreams, sometimes family, money, or those kind of questions, but often just medical body dreams that they act on. They change their diet, or they get a certain type of intervention, or whatever what the dream would guide. And that was the Asclepian tradition that became, I guess, eventually the medical tradition.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's time. We're going to have to take another station break. Please stay with us as Craig and I continue to explore the power of dreams. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
By on the edge of his dream, a whisper of touch, an unheard song, whose bird takes flight, prompted by his broken heart. Fly high, sweet Phoenix.
Can dreams help us evolve? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Craig Webb. Craig, are there common misconceptions about dreams that you feel need to be challenged?
Sure. I mean, maybe some different cultures would say no, depending on what their belief system is. But in our culture, let's say one of the big ones is, oh, it was just a nightmare. Don't worry about it, or just ignore it or forget about it. Unfortunately, that's probably one of the worst things that we could do. That's like saying the smoke alarm goes off in your house. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's just annoying. And pull the battery out, would you please? Well, it'd be good to check a little bit, especially if it's late at night. Was this an actual fire somewhere? And the nightmares come, I won't get too deeply into it, but just to answer your question, as a really important symbol or significance that there's something out of whack, something's in balance. Maybe it's a future probability we're tuning into that's upsetting. Maybe it's body stuff of like a sickness. Maybe it's just a concerning relationship that we're trying to work on emotionally, or unfinished business. If we're, like, example, a war vet, we might have nightmares. They're a little more known as the PTSD nightmares, post-traumatic stress. But it's still good to sort of work through the emotions, because the dream's showing that it's not complete yet. So we can start to see that's a big common misconception. Now, depending a little bit on the audience, let's see, that one that might go in the other direction is we should act on every dream because it's an important message. Well, that's like saying every email we've ever gotten is always super important. We should read every part of it. Well, and then do something about it. I'm not so sure about that either. In fact, I get way too much spam, so I'm trying to get off the list here, one of my New Year's resolutions. But we'll start to see. I think it's valuable for people to at least explore, or at least try to recognize our beliefs, because they start affecting the actual content or what we dream about, or even if we dream. Any beliefs that stick out for you that could be limiting or really beneficial, Gwilda?
Not necessarily. Um, I like the one about every dream isn't necessarily precognitive or something that you have to react on. Sometimes it's just sorting through your day.
Yeah, right. Which might sort of be like cleaning up the hard drive or filing the files or something, which is probably good in the long run. Otherwise, you have an overrun hard drive. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend hours and act on everything in there, right?
Right, exactly. So, now how do modern lifestyles, technology, sleep disruption, constant stimulation, how does that affect our dreams?
Well, as one person who's sometimes guilty of, having the phone open at night, which do what I do, not what I say, but try not to watch the blue screens at night because it'll limit our sleep a little bit. I've learned how to get deep sleep even with it. But the modern technology finds its way in, and then social media will find its way into different people's bedroom sleep. On the positive, a little more less intrusive side, there are technologies, and in fact, this weekend I'm going to be going to a conference all about that. They can be very beneficial, and they're a little more popular. Obviously, there's a lot of technology in sleep laboratories, sort of for recalling, helping to recall dreams. You can wake people up, or for stimulating specific kinds of dreams, watching different visuals or videos or different music before sleep, different sounds or different types of scenarios where people are dreaming or other people intending to somebody have a dream. So there's lots of variations, if you want to call that a technology, but let's say a social technology in that case. And then there's obviously worn devices, wearables, we call them now, like an Apple Watch is a known one, or the Samsung Watch, or these things that can measure our physiology, which is interesting. We can see when we snored, or if we woke up a lot. It can sometimes be helpful for people who have apnea and things. Do you have any of these devices that helps with, I guess, your sleep, Wilda?
I have one of the watches that just lets me know, how much was dream, how much was deep sleep, how much was light
Yeah.
sleep, how much I was awake, that sort of thing. But I find it fascinating to kind of track that and see, oh yeah, it felt like a pretty active night last night, and I'll look at it, and sure enough, I spent a lot of time in REM.
Okay, good. And then the other night that you didn't have much action, you said, okay, maybe I shouldn't have had that big coffee at like 10 p.m. or whatever. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's
Have you?
good. The wearables and that kind of technology aspect, I guess the different new society things, I think are a great adjunct or a tool that our society offers the subjective experience of dreaming. And they should sort of be kept in that framework too. It shouldn't become the magic button that, let's say, always gives us the perfect lucid dream or recognizes that a dream is precognitive, or the AI software that analyzes and tells me exactly what my dream means. That's giving it probably a little too much power for something that should be subjectively empowering. So just keep in mind that it has its place and that there's a good way to explore it. And why not explore it? Because there's some helpful stuff there.
Do you find that, it seems popular now that people listen to um, ambient sounds made for sleep? And the ambient sounds probably aren't so bad, but some people just go to sleep listening to music, sometimes with lyrics. Do you think that that affects the spontaneity of our dreams?
Yeah, well, it starts to move into this, I guess, more recently coined phrase, dream engineering, what I've called for many years designer dreaming or intentional dreaming, just like sort of choose a topic. By the way, people think, oh, I don't. Some people are a little more, let's say, they're in the sacred realm, which is good. I don't think we want to just like, cultivate the heck out of every dream. It's probably not a great thing. That's like trying to mow our subconscious down without considering all the people who live there. But that it's good to sort of see what techniques and what ways we're going to suggest to ourselves. Like probably not every night, and probably just don't drill a certain question 500 times if we're not getting a dream. I've had students, because I lead online classes, who specifically try some dream incubation or maybe a certain technique, and that they usually have, let's say, pretty good 2 or 3 dreams a day recall. And then for about a week, when they're trying that incubation or intentional dreaming, designer dreaming, that they have nothing.
Mm.
And I start to notice after it was specific people, certainly not everybody, otherwise I wouldn't even do it. But when it was specific timing or specific people, that, you know what, perhaps right now it's actually better for them just to naturally allow what's coming rather than guide, direct, and control. And for other people, the other way, if you're having a recurring nightmare and it's just like post-traumatic stress of the relationship breakup, it's time to sort of actively heal, move on, and design a new dream that's going to help you feel empowered and get out of the recurring loop.
Mm. So, have you encountered dreams in your research that profoundly changed the dreamer's life or life direction or belief system?
Wow, yeah, for sure. I've had plenty. In fact, my whole life calling came from a dream. I had my powerful near drowning under the raft. And then not too long after that, I was at the Stanford research. I think I mentioned lucid dreaming. I came back to Montreal and said, wow, what can I do with all this knowledge and some of these tools? And I had gifts in, I guess, electronics and speaking and sort of music a bit. And I had a powerful calling dream that suggested I could speak in schools, maybe share on media some of the helpful research tips, techniques. Even in the second part of the dream, sharing some more artistic aspects of dreams, music, and more recently, I've been a filmmaker. If you want to celebrate with me, Gwilda, my film just recently won the Grand Jury Award at a Hollywood festival, beating out like 200 plus other films. So
Well, congratulations,
thank
Craig.
you.
That's
That's pretty
wonderful.
exciting. That's a
Yeah,
little bit rare, but I was like, okay, dreams
quite a
break.
feather in your cap there.
Yeah, and I think it had some magic help from the other side because that was the one that my deceased father came and had catch the big fish. And the music soundtrack was inspired by dreams, as was the whole story and cinematography. So I probably had some help with that one.
How can working with dreams support personal evolution, spiritual growth, or expanded awareness?
I think just helping to connect us to our inner life a little bit, even if it's just our feelings, because dreams are often a language for feeling. That's beneficial. Many of us are quick, busy, don't access feelings, don't know how. You know, I'm a recovering thinkaholic, so I'm the first one to say that I'm not always connected with my feelings. As a physicist here, I'm trying to get back to my artist side. But that these things can start to bridge into like healing things or more connected relationships. And then we can start to have like personal spiritual explorations. Maybe we have a master or a practice. If you want to be like a little more advanced or directed or I guess really dedicated, you can actually have like a Tibetan dream practice where eventually this experience of falling asleep is going to be conscious, fully conscious, so that at death you can actually surf into the next level of whatever that is after our body leaves and we go somewhere else. So there's lots of levels to that, I guess, personal evolution. But usually it's a little bit more guidance about our life, career, health, relationships. And it's good to listen and start exploring actions as long as they're not too expensive. If some of the listeners have explored dreams for a while and are sort of along the along the route and some of the low-hanging fruit is gone, well, yeah, we might get callings for bigger, more challenging decisions that involve money, relationships. But I say don't take too big a risk until you get one or two or three guidance dreams in the same direction to kind of verify and use a little bit of intellect and science to make sure it was the right interpretation.
That's always the key, isn't it? Is that interpretation piece.
Yeah, like don't go leaping out the window just because you had a flying dream, you know.
That's probably really good advice there, Craig.
But maybe start exploring some of these different drones, or maybe they have jetpacks now. I think you can fly around with.
I love it. So, Craig, what's your mission?
Personally and professionally, it's usually sort of to enjoy myself, learn my life lessons. So two personal things first, but they bridge perfectly, and I don't think they even are separate from really bringing some of the creative, unique gifts from me and from different researchers and other people, authors, explorers, even, I guess, amazing media folks like yourself and Rob McConnell there, out to more and more people. So kind of an idea bringer, maybe a solution or a technique bringer that we can empower. I guess if I was going to sum it up with a little story, I kind of follow what this story I remember hearing from, I guess, an amazing colleague of mine, Hal Stone, who passed on not too long ago. And he actually was present with Carl Jung and said, yeah, he said some media person interviewed him and said, Dr. Jung, you're brilliant. You've done lots of research, written papers, books, and had lots of clients and respected around the world. Do you think we're going to make it on Earth? Because we have lots of environmental, political, lots of messes going on with everything. And Dr. Jung thought for a moment. He said, well, I can't tell you if we are going to make it. And you'll forgive my bad German accent or Austrian accent. But he said, I can tell you that we'll make it to the exact extent to which each person is able to integrate their shadow, their personal, I guess, fears, nightmares, the things they need to heal, and the gifts that they need to develop and bring out. And if each person does that, This is Craig speaking now. Then I think we go from sort of this hopeful sort of dependence or independence realm back to a beautiful world of interdependence, kind of like our little piece of the mosaic of world peace starts to happen.
Beautiful. Well, unfortunately, Craig, we are out of time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Well, that was a nice wrap. Well, people can learn more at dreamsbehindthemusic.com or connect with me.
You've been listening to Mission Evolution, and my guest today has been dream researcher Craig Webb. To find out more about Craig, all he has to offer, visit his website, craigwebb.ca. As we've discussed, dreams may be far more fleeting than fleeting images of the night. They may be invitations to listen more closely to ourselves, to our intuition, and to the deeper currents of consciousness through lives. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, and thank you for joining us on this journey of insight, curiosity, and consciousness exploration. For more information about Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. And please be sure to join us right here next time, where this mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.
Nation.